Hi friends, hope you are doing well. I'm Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I'll answer a very important question, and this has come from a viewer, and the question is, how do you buy a good plan for travel health insurance if you are going abroad? Now, in many situations, if you are going for a conference, you should buy such an insurance plan. Even if you are going for a longer term visit, maybe there is a short period before your actual insurance kicks in from a university or from a company, during which you do not have insurance, so you can buy a travel insurance plan to cover this particular time point. Now, many a time travel insurance is something which is required in a visa process, but sometimes it is not required. So interestingly, if you are applying for a Schengen visa, a 30,000 euro level of health insurance coverage is required for your getting the visa. So you need to get this insurance coverage and submit it as part of your visa documentation. But interestingly, in the US visa system, they do not require you to have any travel health insurance. Now, I would of course encourage people who are coming to US to always get a travel health insurance, because even if you are coming as a tourist, maybe you are coming to visit your parents or your children, or come to your children's graduation function, you need to be aware that the healthcare system in US is extremely expensive, and therefore it's a very good idea to get a lot of travel health insurance coverage before you plan to come to the US. Now, of course, this would apply to any country around the world. Remember, you are in an unfamiliar country, and in such a country, if you have any kind of health problem, maybe you have an accident, maybe you fall down the stairs, maybe you get hit by a car. These are unfortunately situations which are very rare but which can take place. So there is something known as the situation where you have a very low but finite probability of an event taking place. So all these are under that category, and in any such situation it is always good to have a good travel health insurance. So today I'm going to mention some particular points to keep in mind when selecting such coverage, and these are certainly going to help you. Now, I have been getting US visas for a long time. I got my first visa when Ronald Reagan was president. That was during the 1980s. And my last visa when Joe Biden was the president, or is the president, that is in the 2020s. So I'm going to tell you all this from my personal experience and from information I have garnered from my friends and people I know. Now, I'm not an insurance consultant, so do keep this in mind that this is just information which I have obtained personally. So I'm going to divide this video into several points, and then I'm going to give you certain tips about people who have certain conditions or who may be in more dire need of medical care if anything happens. So let's begin this particular journey. I'm also going to put in a lot of B-roll because I'm going to read many things from my form which I have prepared here. Now, the thing which is generally covered in travel medical insurance is emergency medical treatment, and this is covered up to the amount which is mentioned in the plan. And also what is covered is expenses for evacuation and accidents. So again, it can happen sometime that you have a problem which is severe, but you may not be somebody who can be treated in that country, and you may need to be sent back to your home country. In that case, they will pay for that moving you back. There is also the cancellation and trip delay coverage. There is a protection for loss of passport and travel document, and also there is the situation where a person passes away and his body has to be sent back, and those kind of things. So again, do read the fine print of any travel health insurance scheme very carefully, because the fine print is something which is extremely important, and that's going to come back later to haunt you if you do not take care of that. Now, how much coverage should you get? Now, like I mentioned before, the Schengen visa require a coverage of about 30,000 euros. And I would say a corresponding number would be about 50,000 US dollar. That should be the minimum coverage you should get. But I will point out that for the J1 visa, for example, there is a requirement to get healthcare coverage of $100,000. So I would say this is the right number to go for if you want to be on the conservative side. Now, do look at the amount of money you are able to spend and so on, but of course the more coverage you get is better. Now, one more thing to keep in mind is that when you buy travel insurance, you need to buy it for a particular time. And people often buy it for exactly the time during which they are coming. So maybe they are coming to the US for 15 days for a conference and they will buy this insurance for 15 days. Now, I would say buy it for some more time after the departure date, because I have seen cases where people actually missed a flight. They had to stay an extra 2-3 days to get the flight back to their home country, and during this period they did not have any health coverage. They were going from the airport, they were going to the hotels, they were wandering around the airport to get the next flight and so on. So in case the unfortunate event happened that they got into some accident or a health problem, they would not have had any coverage. So that's not going to take a lot of money getting an extra 2-3 days of coverage, but it may help you a lot in case there is a problem. Now, remember, the whole insurance industry is based on a certain concept in probability, which means that there is a small but finite probability of bad things happening to you. Now, the keyword here is small, and sometimes it can be very small, but it is finite because it's non-zero. So do keep that in mind. There are cases where people have been hit by cars. There are cases where people have been victims of violent crime while they have been traveling in US and other countries, and oftentimes tourists are more vulnerable because people know that these guys are tourists and they may explicitly target them, especially the criminal entities in any country. So in case something unfortunate happens, then you have this medical insurance to fall back on. So let us now discuss these 6 points which I have listed here, and then I'm going to conclude this video. So the point number 1 is you need to go to some portals which actually give you comparative studies about the different insurance plans. So for example, if you are in India, there is the policybazaar.com portal, and if you go to this portal, you give the dates in which you are traveling, you give details about yourself, specifically your age, if you have any pre-existing condition or not, then they are going to give you a large number of insurance policies which are going to cover you. You need a phone number, a mobile number, and you can very quickly buy this policy if you have a credit card or a debit card. So this will of course give you the different policies, and what most people do is that they select the cheapest possible policy. Now this may be okay thing to do, but I'm going to give you certain ideas in the next point as a better approach. Now I would say it's always better to buy insurance from companies which are relatively renowned and which are good in name, because do remember, many companies will sell you insurance policies, but in case you have a problem and you approach them for getting the money or getting reimbursed for that particular expense, they will behave very differently than when they were trying to sell you the policy. So one of the strategies here is to go for companies which are linked to good brand names. So typically companies whose names you know, they may be companies which are associated with banks, big financial institutions and so on. And also if they have a foreign partner, try to look at a good foreign partner also. So as far as the Indian scenario is concerned, I will give you 4 companies which I have used for my insurance and some insurance for my family members. These are Tata AIG, HDFC Ergo, ICICI Lombard, and Bajaj Alliance. Now you will see in all these cases the particular Indian company is very well known. For example, HDFC and ICICI have big banking operations throughout India. Also, Tata is a very big conglomerate which makes all things from salt to cars and so on. And of course, Bajaj is a well-known financial company also. Now let us look at their partners here. AIG is a well-known US insurer. Alliance is a well-known German insurance company. It is probably the world's largest insurance company. Again, Ergo is a German insurance company which is very well known. And Lombard is an insurance company based in Luxembourg. So my theory is that you should always go for good brand name companies, and it's best if the foreign branch of this particular company, if it's a joint venture, is in the country where you are going. So again, this is my spin on it. Your mileage may vary, but of course you can think of this in a certain way, that if you were ever to check into a hospital, the various staff there, the nurses, are going to have a good brand recognition of that particular company you are going for. So if you are in the US and you have a Tata AIG policy, then AIG is a known insurer in the US, and so the people are going to be very comfortable with that name. Similarly, if you are going into the German region, then companies such as Allianz and Argo are very well known in that region, and people will know that. Similarly, if you are going into the French type of regions, then Lombard is very well known there. I would say in the entire EU region, you can go with any of the German, French, and all these type of companies. They will generally know about these companies. So that's the theory I used to use for getting the coverage under the US visa or the Schengen visa. So in the case of US, I would always prefer a company which is also linked to the US system. Now, the next tip is that whenever you buy insurance, always share any pre-existing conditions, because what happens is that the pre-existing condition play a strong role about whether they are going to accept or deny your claim after you have a particular problem. Typical pre-existing conditions include anything related to diabetes, to heart disease, maybe to hypertension, maybe if somebody had cancer before, and so on. Now, these problems typically afflict people when they are older. So if you are somebody who is bringing a parent to the US, or somebody who is bringing a relatively older relative to the US, or maybe you are an elderly person coming to the US to his son or daughter's graduation, then make sure that you list out all the pre-existing condition. Now, of course, your premium may go up, but that's okay. What will happen is that if you really have a problem, they are going to take care of you because they already know you had the pre-existing condition in that particular area. So again, veracity in filling these forms for insurance is something which is very important. Now, the next thing to keep in mind is that whenever you have insurance, the issue is only relating to you and not any relatives you are visiting or any friends you are staying with, and so on. So if you have a particular insurance coverage, then US government always treats you as an independent entity. You have to go to the hospitals and you have to mention your name, your address, show your passport, and show your health insurance, and so on, and then they will take the process further from there. So it's always a good idea not to involve any relatives or friends in that particular question, because you don't want them to be subject to any billing issues and all later. So you want to take care of everything yourself. So keep this in mind, that you need to provide information about yourself in all these particular situations. Now, in some cases, they may also want a phone number, so you can give whatever phone number you have. It may be a foreign phone number, or you may have picked up a US phone number or a European phone number during your visit, and then you can give this particular phone number also. So these were some of the points for people who have regular issues, regular problem, who may not foresee much need for the health insurance coverage. Now, I'll mention that if you are somebody who feels that he is going to have bigger problems in health, maybe you have pre-existing conditions and so on, you may also think of buying your insurance from a US company. And in the old days, this was not possible because you could only pay for things in your home currencies. For example, if you are Indian, you have to pay in rupees. So you are constrained to buying from an Indian company. But nowadays, you can even buy your travel insurance coverage from a foreign company. So you can buy it, for example, from Insubuy. That is a company which many people use when they are bringing their parents from India to the US. The company is Insubuy. I will put it up on the video screen. And also there are some more companies such as Seven Corners Travel Insurance and so on. There are many universities which actually list out a lot of companies for the H1 scholars or for the J1 scholars who come to the country, and even the F1 scholars. So what happens is that these names are often very useful. Like I mentioned before, J1 visa actually has a requirement for health coverage. So the universities and all are generally not likely to even let you get the J1 visa unless you have shown some proof of health coverage. So do keep that in mind. Now, I know in the case of ASU, there are several recommended plans they have on their web page for health coverage. I'm going to leave that link also in the video here so that you can take a look at that particular link and see. Again, this is not a recommendation. I am not getting any thing from any of these companies I've mentioned. This is just information I have garnered over years of travel for scholarly purposes around the world. So that will give you a start on any of the US companies here. Now, if you have an international credit card, you can of course buy your insurance directly from some of the US companies. Now, some people say that in case you have a problem, you have various issues, you are somebody who has health issues and so on, maybe you are a more elderly person, then buying health insurance from the US company is actually better, because the entire system is right in the US. They are better able to take care of you in case there is any problem and so on. So again, that is something which is generally heard in the community in the US, and so that's something you may want to consider. So this was my take on the very important topic of travel health insurance. I am going to leave several videos in the end screen which you can consider to plan your journey further. Remember, some things which are very important when you travel to US or any foreign country is to have an international credit card. That's something you are going to need in many situations. So I'll stop my video here and I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.